All right. We are live, guys. We've got Sara Smith on the line today to talk to on the line. I have her on the line on Zoom. We've got Sara live. And if you don't know Sara, she's a doctor of physical therapy. She's a certified yoga instructor. She's a pelvic floor expert. I call it, she's an intuitive healer. Okay, well, yeah, pelvic floor.
We'll go with it.
Intuitive, core, confidence. Okay, all these words. Sara, for the people out there that are new in this group, we have some new people in the group.
Yay.
Maybe we have some new people watching on YouTube. If you're watching the replay and you have questions, hashtag replay later, so Sara can come back and answer them for us. Sara, tell us what it is you do with pelvic floor. I know it's a big word. It's a big topic.
It is such a big topic, and it's exciting that it's more acceptable and spoken about than it ever has been. I'll actually back up and start with what I used to do, which really was just true traditional pelvic floor therapy, and we call it pelvic floor therapy as opposed to women's health. It is women's health, but pelvic floor, everybody has a pelvic floor, so it does not mean that this pelvic floor issues or symptoms or dysfunction is happening just with women. It happens with children. One of the most common ones is bedwetting at night, and chronic constipation, as well as males, and then anyone identifying everybody as a pelvis. So
really, so we can all get pelvic floor issues.
Everybody,
even children. Okay,
even children. Yeah.
So you're a doctor of physical therapy, and you identified. When did you identify that the pelvis was the issue?
So I have always studied hands-on work was a lot of the basis of when I was learning physical therapy. And because of that hands-on influence and holistic influence that I had, we usually, like in the world of what's called craniosacral therapy, we're constantly balancing the sacrum and then the cranium, the head. And so I always knew that there was really a connection there. When I got into the world of pelvic floor physical therapy, and then I also around the same time was going through yoga teacher training. So I was familiarizing myself more with the chakras and with kind of a just more intuitive mind-body approach. And then when I really truly started getting into pelvic floor therapy, for me, I started noticing that stress and what our beliefs are, the layering of our past, our childhood, trauma, a lot of it can get housed and stored throughout the body. Like most women are we hold stress up here, right? For example, I know I do, I'll start going this way. But it also usually if we're tight here, we were just talking about that before the call. Me too. I have like that thing. Usually if there's tension here or there's tension in the jaw, there's also tension below. And so that's where I started noticing that a lot of it is below. Because the majority of us, when you think of childhood, when you think of traumas or difficulties that have happened in your life, or you think of stressful situations, it is a safety and security issue. It is a feeling cut off from being able to be courageously you, to be authentic.
Well, okay. Thinking about pelvic floor, and I've struggled with this. Okay, so core, you hear that word everywhere. And I've even said it in the, I'm working on my core. And then I had this back issue. And so it's like, okay, what just happened? My core felt strong, was working my core. Sara, what is the real core? Because I just You've taught me so much in this aspect.
Right. Yes. The first thing that I want to say to this, because this just completely popped in my mind, so I'm going to go with it, is that, we're going to dive into this even more in the Gift of Freedom retreat. Because our pelvis and our connection with our pelvis, just like our connection and our relationship with food and ourselves and the way that we're eating, a lot of this is what I define as radical self-care. It's the self-care that no one really is telling you about, but that all of us are like, I need help with my back pain, or I need help with my pelvic floor, or I'm trying to feel better in my body, or I'm trying to eat and feel healthy, feel better. So we're going to be getting into even more of this goodness in the Gift of Freedom retreat that's coming up. I just had to say that at first.
I love it. You use the word radical self-care, and My Body is Not an Apology is one of my favorite books to recommend for body image. And that is the word she uses too. She's radical self-care when it comes to food, body, feeling in your body. Okay, we have somebody that says she's going to watch later. She's going out, but she's coming back. So hashtag replay. And give StreamYard access so we can see who you are and chat with you too. And then it won't say Facebook user. But if you can't figure out how to do that, no worries. So come back later and ask a question and leave it in comments for us if you have it. So
back to the core.
Back to the core.
What is this? Because you're right. Like one of my biggest pet peeves that I'm trying to get over is now we're in the fitness and the exercise and taking care of ourselves in the wellness world. The word core is getting thrown around a lot in exercise classes, especially if you're doing something online, which became very, common for all of us.
And I am, yeah.
Yeah. But if you really slow down, usually what they're saying is engage your core. Well, what the heck does that mean? And
I thought it was sucking in my stomach. And
most people think it's sucking in the stomach, that it's pulling the belly button towards the spine, or that it may be like a glute squeeze, that it may include the pelvic floor. But usually people are not being guided what that means. And so it starts with the foundation. And Wendy, you and I spoke with this privately as far as your back pain goes, but there are 4 main muscles that make up the pelvic floor, that make up the core, and they have nothing to do with really the majority of muscles that most people are engaging. So it's the, and I wish I had my whole person, but I don't. We have the pelvic floor muscles, which is a whole slew of muscles at the bottom. Okay. And then from here, we have the other muscle, or the multifidus muscles. So they literally connect spinous process and all of the vertebrae to another vertebrae. So they're right up against the bones, the same way your pelvic floor is right there. Then it's the transverse abdominis. So that muscle goes basically from the spine and from some other musculature, and it wraps around to the front. So I call that like your internal corset. So if you've ever watched somebody, move furniture for a living and they're wearing those big black braces, well, you have that inside of you. But again, it's the deepest abdominal muscle. So it has nothing to do. We engage the transverse abdominis first before we engage the rectus abdominis, that meaning our 6-pack, if somebody happens to have that. And then at the top, so like if you think of yourself as a balloon, then at the top is the diaphragm. And so the diaphragm, the multifidus, the transverse abdominis, and the pelvic floor muscles, those 4 muscles make up the core. And the best way that I can describe it, anyway, that's what really we're going to be learning in the Gift of Freedom retreat. But the best way that I can describe it is that no one should know when you're engaging these muscles other than they know you're breathing, right? It's an internal game when you're engaging your core.
Right now, what you taught me. Can anyone see? No?
Me too. Yeah.
What about if you have 6-pack abs? Can you still I mean, you said it a minute ago, even if you have six-pack abs, is it possible for these muscles to become weak?
Yes. One of my favorite stories to describe this is I had an amazing opportunity that I never planned for to work with an Olympic swimmer. And this girl was, I mean, any of her musculature was just on point. But she was suffering from a lot of ankle pain and low back and sacral pain. And she had been to lots of physical therapists, and lots of physical therapists were giving her very, very high level core exercises because she was an athlete.
Hmm.
And so one would think, okay, if I have the six pack abs, like, let me get the six pack abs, right? Like, let me just strengthen my belly, everything will be fine. And the truth is you have a back side of your body. So the back sides and then the lateral sides of your body need to be engaged. So she wasn't engaging. If you think about an onion, right? We need to engage our musculature is just like an onion. So we've got to engage the inner before we engage the outer. The paraspinal muscles on the back, like those big muscles that, for example, on men, that are really muscular, we're like, ooh, look at those beautiful back muscles there.
Yeah.
Those muscles, for example, when we put them in a research setting, if we look at how strong they are, they can pull as much force as a car. Well, we don't want that pulling on these little vertebrae and discs. We need inner stability first, which is engaging your core, and then the outer stability. So with this Olympic swimmer, she finally was able to find relief when we went back to the very basics of this is how you engage the core. When you learn how to engage the inner muscles properly, and then you bring in your big, what I call the big driver muscles, like the quads and the glutes and the six pack, or, just abdominal muscles for those of us that are normal.
And by the way, I don't know who has those out there, but that's not the norm anyway.
No, it's not. And so that's when she wasn't experiencing that pain. But again, we all have a judgment usually, right? That if somebody looks a certain way, that they're not dealing with anything. I know tons of CrossFitters. I've worked with tons of people who really are very, very, muscular and shredded, so to speak, but they're dealing with terrible shoulder issues because it all comes back to stability. They're missing. We usually in the exercise fitness world are missing key components. Interestingly enough, not Olympic swimmers, just Olympic female athletes have one of the highest rates of incontinence, meaning like leaking urine or feces, of any other age, any other group within the same age bracket.
Okay,
young female athletes.
Let's talk about some of the problems that can occur, I'm thinking, when we have a weak pelvic floor muscles.
Yeah. So again, the first thing I'm going to say is a lot of times weakness can also come. Of course, my puppy dog wants to get out the door right now. I can't let you out. I have my earbuds in. You got to stay. So weakness also usually comes, and again, we can talk about this more in a second, but from tense musculature, from stress coming from above, thoughts, overthinking, overgiving, overdoing. And so usually the musculature is actually not, it's weak because it's in a guarding tension pattern. Okay. But, so it's usually not just like it used to be when pelvic floor physical therapy started. It used to be Kegels, 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 Kegels. And you'll still see that a lot where I was doing some research online the other day.
Google or YouTube, you YouTube pelvic floor and it's all Kegel stuff.
Yes. And that's usually, it's not always the best way. It's really individualized, and it's really important for somebody to take a whole look at you, which doesn't often happen. But but to answer your point, so they're usually kind of a combination of weak / really tense. And what can happen is urgency. So I like to kind of giggle and say, urgency is where I call it the push the old lady out of the way syndrome. If there was a precious old lady in front of you and you had to pee pee or poo poo really fast, you're going to be like, I'm sorry, but you've just got to move because I've got to get to the bathroom, or else I'm gonna have an accident. That's
like
urgency. That's urgency. And that is not within the realm of normal. That usually is for a variety of factors, things that are irritating the bladder and the musculature that are creating what's called dyssynergy, meaning they're not activating at the right time. There's also incontinence, of course, which is leaking. That can be of gas, that can be bowel, that could be bladder. There is what's called prolapse. So prolapse we think is very, very underreported, but roughly off the top of my head, about 50 to anywhere from like 65% of women usually have prolapse. You don't have to have had a baby to experience prolapse symptoms. But prolapse is where the organs that are here, such as the bladder, uterus, if you have it, rectum, may begin to kind of come down south, as I like to call it. So, heading to Florida, just like where we live right now.
I'm in South Florida.
Right. And oh gosh, even further. Right. And so that can happen with prolapse, and that can be a combination of a whole lot of things. So those are a few. Pelvic pain. I just did a big article for Hormonely, our friend Cindy with Hormonely. And pelvic pain is a whole branch in and of itself, and it can happen during intercourse. It can happen with like dryness, menopause, perimenopause can be a cause of it. So, and then there's constipation. There's the GI world that, preaching to the choir there. It gets real. That gets very real. So there's a lot. And of course there's postpartum and preparing for pregnancy, and hopefully I'm not forgetting anything at the moment, but those are the major buckets.
We covered a lot. And I know we just touched on, and I want to say the skeleton was a big help for somebody.
Oh, good.
So,
okay.
Yeah. And, I want to just say you touched on the emotional stuff and the stress and the stuff that we hold in that's causing us to guard with our pelvic floor muscles. Totally hits home with me. And, and I can see it in what happens to me physically when I have that kind of stress and I'm not taking care of myself. So Sara, I know we only have 20 minutes with you. Let's talk about the gift of freedom, because I think that is the piece that we're going to be going into more with the pelvic floor, tying it into stress and our emotions. Yeah. Sara coming from this side of it, I'm going to be helping you from the food side of it. And we're going to put all this together in the gift of freedom, which is a virtual retreat coming up. So if you have resonated with any of this with Sara, which I totally have with the pelvic floor stuff, engaging in the real core, tuning into your body. I know you guys, we talk about this all the time with the food and the body image stuff. This will be combining all of that stuff in one weekend. So
yeah, and usually, for all cases, our bodies are communicating with us, and we're not really taught how to understand the messages and how to take something that feels so awful and stressful and all-consuming, be it the way you feel in your clothes. And, it's like, I've heard the comments before. It's like, I can't really focus on my job. I am, but it's always in the back of my mind of how I feel in my clothes, or the pain, or worrying about the incontinence, or prolapse. All of these things are urgency. They become consuming. So often we think that our body hates us and it's just trying to make our lives miserable. But if we can, what I hope, and what we're doing that is, again, so radical in this retreat, is that they are literally beautiful messages that are coming actually from a place of kindness. And so as we can start having a deeper relationship and a more loving relationship with our body, and not just our mind and the constant rat race
up here
what's wrong and diet brain, yeah, then a lot of really truly miraculous things begin happening that previously were not available for you. And so, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And May the 5th. So gosh, that's next week is the last day because of our fancy gift box that's coming that Wendy and I are like so excited about.
We have beautiful gift boxes that we're shipping to your door. And I know there's a couple of ladies that are going to a special, retreat location together, and they want to get their gift boxes, and we'll ship it to you. Wherever you choose to have your me time, let us know. But the gift boxes are going out May 6th. So May 5th is the date to get us your gift, to get registered so that we can get you your gift box. And the retreat is the 22nd and the 23rd of May. So we've been mindful of the time. We want to give you enough that you're getting so much value, but we also want to give you breaks of time to find some space and some peace. Yeah. We're allowing Sunday morning for you guys. If you go to church, you got that time, and all of this stuff will be recorded for you so you can have it afterwards. So if you miss anything, that's okay too. You'll have this for as long as you need it. It's yours. So if you have any questions, let us know. Sara, thank you so much for coming on and giving us your pelvic floor wisdom.
I can talk about it all day long.
All right. You guys have a wonderful weekend. We want you to join us. So let us know if you're interested. Comment below. Bye, guys.